Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of LeaderShipping. It's hard to believe, we're already almost 2 months into 2025. It's been crazy. Everything's flown by. We've had snowstorms. We've had floods. We've had floods that froze. If you look at Detroit the other day, lots of stuff happening in the carrier world. We've got, big news from the national carriers consolidating their networks, looking for more efficiencies, changing, different aspects of that business. We've got news from USPS as well. They've been fighting to gain more direct volume. And then this morning, I believe there was an announcement that Louis DeJoy is going to be stepping down. We're a month and a half into 2025, and this is after everything that happened in 2024. And there's going to be a lot to happen. But we'll dive into that here in just a few moments. But I want to introduce somebody that I've got joining me here. As you all can see, I've got Mark. How do you say your last name? I'm going to butcher it. I know that I am. So I'm going to ask you, how do you say your last name?
Yeah, it's Waverek. It's a well-known Polish name.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks for joining us. Mark is the managing partner at Plaidmark Management Consulting Services. And correct me if I get anything wrong here. He provides consulting services across the globe. We're looking at postal, air cargo industries, all of that stuff that's out there. He was a Marine for 22 years, Semper Fi. Thank you for your service, sir. He supported the U.S. Postal Service overseas. He, you spent 20 years with DHL? Managing the parcel logistics, solution sales, customer experience for multiple military, postal, and DHL business units. You've got a rap sheet over here that I could just scroll through. It's amazing. And most recently, you served a stint as the director of business development at Box C. I mean, this experience is amazing, and I'm glad that you're here to join us to talk about all of this stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeremy. Thanks for the kind introduction. I've had really a lot of opportunities in my 43 years of postal, and as we heard about the postmaster's departure today, someone asked me earlier. They said, "Who was the postmaster when you started?" And I had to think back, and William Bolger. So the next postmaster will be my 12th postmaster.
Oh my gosh! And I don't think kids these days even. I don't even know if they realize that there is a postmaster. I don't know if they're teaching kids that anymore. It's one of those jobs that quietly seems to get done, and most folks don't realize it. They end up with a bunch of stuff in their mailbox, some positive, some not so positive, but it's all coordinated, and it's a massive staff. How many folks? Ballpark round numbers. Do you have an idea of how many folks are working for the post office?
640,000 roughly of postal workers that are out there rain, sleet, or snow every day getting mail in somebody's mailbox. So yeah, a huge organization, and I think they're going to struggle to find a replacement for the postmaster. It's got to be one of the most difficult jobs on the planet if you think about it. Delivering 640,000 employees, unions. Transportation, logistics, trying to stay competitive, trying to make a profit, trying to redesign. The Postal Service was built for everybody to mail things and communications to one another. And here we find ourselves now trying to compete in the package world of getting everybody's e-commerce deliveries onto their doorstep or into their mailbox. So a huge undertaking for anybody. Another civil service job, right? You're servicing the U.S. citizens, so huge opportunity, but yet huge undertaking.
Folks don't realize how much or how important the post office is until you do. It's one of those things like you need to get a passport. Guess what? That's where you're going to get that stuff taken care of. Tax refunds, filing secure documents, things like that are moving around inside the government. All of that stuff is handled by these folks. And to your point, I think it was -3 this morning when we woke up, a few inches of snow on the ground, and guess what? We're still getting service when the national carriers might have put out weather delays and things like that. These folks are still grinding away every single day, and so we appreciate them. Well, let's kind of jump into all of this stuff. you know, of everything that's unfolded in the last year, what do you think will have the largest impact on 2025 and even beyond that?
Yeah, the amount of changes that has happened probably in the last 6 to 12 months here have been the most I've ever seen across the industry in its whole entirety. I mean, that many changes coming at us. It used to be you would look at it and say, you have FedEx, you have UPS, and you have the USPS. As e-commerce evolved and grew, the consolidators played a big role into going out and winning packages to the post office. And they were out there basically saying, hey, you can avoid the postal gauntlet, go around the post office, and the post office goes to the door 6 days a week better than nobody, because that's what they do for a living nationwide. When that changed, then everybody had to kind of rethink their plans here. The post office is not going to allow the consolidators to take it to the final mile and go around them. The post office needs to change and get better economies of scale out of their middle mile and manage what the volumes were going into the regional facilities, and at the same time not get beat with their own stick by having the consolidators get there faster and selling it cheaper than they could in the marketplace. So the ground advantage is a great win for the post office. The recent results showed that 1,000 new NSAs were signed. The volumes were up. They had a double-digit increase, and for the first time in a long time, they had a net increase. So that was disruptive, and that's a massive change that was working for the post office. The relationships that customers had for small parcels were maintained by the consolidators. The post office hadn't had those direct relationships. So this is all starting over new for them. But that's one area. Obviously, the de minimis changes, the Chinese shippers, that's another piece of disruption. Changes in the Section 321, where people had been kind of skirting and been avoiding paying duties and taxes, is a kind of a loophole. Closing that and changing that will disrupt how people get their goods or how they order them today. And then obviously the postmaster's departure here will also be changed because he was changing the way the post office was operating. So yeah,
Certainly
all in a
was.
week, right? We've seen all these changes in probably the last 30 days. Then we say, oh, that is what's going to happen the rest of the year.
I don't know. Hopefully, vacations for everyone that's been trying to, keep up with this. Just for anybody that might be listening and not familiar with, what the de minimis value is, could you just kind of elaborate on that and clarify a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I can relate to the de minimis quite well because having served overseas in the military, we were always mailing things back. And if you think about de minimis, it was really intended for the purpose of going abroad or being assigned overseas where you could send home souvenirs and gifts. Back in the days, it was $25, and then it went to 50, and then up to 200. And the U.S. de minimis for bringing goods in is $800, right? So no other country offers an $800 de minimis, and that was changed under a couple of administrations previously, but it was really to lessen the load on customs of handling these lower value items, not having to sit there and open every package and assign assessed duties and taxes. So they raised the de minimis to get them through. COVID came along, e-commerce rules kind of changed with the UPU's self-pricing deregulation, changing the prices at the UPU. That changed now to where the commercial really kind of exposed that loophole where the Sheins, the Temus, and all these Chinese, hey, we can make it right directly from the manufacturer and ship it directly to you because you're the importer of record, you're the consumer, and you don't pay no duties and taxes. And so what people were doing is just ordering items from abroad or outside the U.S. and not having to pay any duties and taxes on this. Current administration and the old past administration both felt that, hey, this is a loophole we got to kind of close. So that's where we're at right now. We're in that pause process to see how the loophole will be closed and what type of tariffs or, in my opinion, be some type of tax assessed or some type of GST, very similar to maybe what Australia does, is, in my opinion, what might be the way it's going to go.
Well, we always see these types of things pop up. Where there's a will, there's a way to try to get around things. Nobody ever wants to pay taxes or do anything, but everybody likes to have nice things, right? Like you like to have nice roads. You like to make sure that, your fire department is going to be well funded and show up. All of these, we want to have nice schools, right? Like all of these things come from taxes, and when businesses and different strategies kind of work around them, it defeats the purpose. So it makes sense. I understand why they're doing it. I like to see how they're going to execute it and see what kind of positive change it brings.
Yeah, I mean, there's other pieces and components. This is right. We're gonna make safe borders, right? A lot of illicit drugs and things with forced labor and IPR violations, copyright. All of those things are brought into our country, right? They get
Sure.
in here illegally too. We gotta tighten that up. I mean, so I think some of the noise is really to say, hey, Mexico, Canada, you guys can do a better job of kind of protecting that border. And China, if you knew who these guys were, that are these bad actors out there that are putting illicit drugs into the network, Chinese government wouldn't allow that either. So I mean, there's some pressure politically that they put on with the use of tariffs, or at least the tools that they want to apply. But when they decided to flip the switch a week ago there, I mean, we don't have an infrastructure that can collect that duties and taxes, right? We
Right.
don't have, the post office has no way to sit down and tell everybody that here, oh, all these are dutiable items. I need to collect it now from you, the consumer. So this needs to be digitally fixed, right? We need to have
Sure.
an infrastructure. We need to apply whether it be a VAT or a GST to it, digitally assess it, and then collect that money up, rather than eliminate the de minimis. I still think the de minimis is a good thing, but we need to have good data.
Sure.
I mean, you think about Type 86 was put there for the pure purpose of, hey, I need more data. Who's the shipper? What is it? What's the HS classification? Where was the transaction? Send me a copy of the transaction between buyer and seller. Having all that data up front, and that allowed T86 really to excel and go faster, because the whole informal clearance process is very manual.
Hmm.
So the customs brokers, and in essence, if we were to leave it the way it is today and just put a de minimis on it, I mean, all the additional costs are always passed to the consumer anyway,
Sure.
right? I mean, if we say it's 10%, 10% get applied, the consumer pays 10% more. If it's 25%, it's 25% more. So
Sure. Have we seen, obviously America is one of the largest importers of goods. So, there's a lot of things coming in here. Have we seen other, strategies that other countries have run that have, maybe something that we could have learned or learn from, around this type of stuff to help us, go faster? I guess taking from lessons learned, if you will.
yeah, I mean, obviously the UK's had some disruptions with their program by implementing a straight VAT, eliminating the de minimis. Australia and New Zealand seem to have, with the GST, whether 10% or 15%, has seemed to work well. Now
Hmm.
that's a seller's tax. That's a tax that the seller pays. So rather than trying to collect money from all these individual consumers on these direct consumers, put it on the seller's responsibility. The additional cost gets passed on to the consumer by the goods. So I think that's a good model. You know, trade reciprocity is really important, right? I mean, even the U.S. and Canada, think about it. We have an $800 de minimis today. Canada has a $20 postal de minimis and a $40 commercial clearance de minimis. So what is it, $14 for one way? They're $14 for a postal clearance. We're $800. That's kind of an imbalance. So,
Sure.
how do you promote fair trade? How do you want more? I think what the administration wants is people should be buying from America, and Americans should be buying from other countries, but it should be fair.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair and entirely reasonable. So, beyond the de minimis, there's been a lot of changes in the post office over the last year. Um, can you give us a just kind of a rundown? I know we've touched on a couple of things, but what are they hoping to accomplish with a lot of the changes?
Yeah, I think change-wise is just the whole operating costs, right? You got 640,000 employees. How do you control? First thing was they cut down the air, right? I
Hmm.
mean, people are willing to wait a little bit longer on packages. Ground became very effective. Two guys in a sleeper running cross country. That's the norm these days, right? So ground, by taking a lot of stuff out of the air with the FedEx contract, and obviously UPS now picking up that FedEx Priority Mail Network contract, you take out a lot of costs. So I think the post office, I forget but it's in the billions of savings of what they've saved by moving things to the ground. So it's significant, right?
Sure.
Uh, Redesign a little bit of the network design. Like I said, we talked a little bit about that before. The network that was designed previously was, small post offices supporting communities with communications. Now it's about having that same infrastructure that you would have where based off a population where people reside, having those distribution centers near the base of your customers. Post office has a lot of real estate, but did they have the right design? Well, I think that they made some strides forward to do that. They've reduced some headcount, and I guess more importantly, in the big picture is, they're driving to have direct relationships, sales relationships with customers, and that's kind of something they took for granted probably, for the past 20 years here, having consolidators go out there, maintain relationships with the customer, and have the post office doing the final mile delivery. Now they want to do all those things, and that it comes with change. I mean, they're learning as well. They're learning that they have to have an infrastructure to support the customer's needs. The product's got to deliver on time. You have to have the IT infrastructures to get labels created. You have to have customer support teams. You have to have transportation management teams. So there's disconnects. There's obviously some issues that people may have had when they switched over to Ground Advantage. But at the same time, look, these are all fixable. These things can all be fixed and repaired.
I believe that. For folks that aren't familiar with the Ground Advantage service, can you elaborate on that a little bit and talk about how it compares to some of the other services they might be more familiar with like a UPS or a FedEx, for example?
Yeah, so it's a deferred, it's a ground product, 2 to 5 days, goes nationwide. So the delivery expectation is 2 to 5 days. The post office will pick it up from any place that you have and can ship it to any place in the United States. It covers all addresses, so you go to every zip code. There's no added DAS fees or no fuel surcharge fees, so it's a very clean rate. So if you're a shipper out there today, you think about, hey, I just want to know what my costs are. It's ounce based. I mean, that's probably where they're making their biggest splash. The post office, as an ounce based rate, they're the only ones really that have nationwide distribution for ounce based. There's a few regionals out there today that are trying to, offer some alternatives to the post office in some sort of select markets. But realistically, if you want all 50 states, U.S. trust territories, APOs, FPOs, the Ground Advantage product goes to every zip code, PO box. So, I mean, ounce based, if you're not using the post office Ground Advantage for ounce based shipping, you're probably not running full efficiencies or optimizing your costs as best you can. So I encourage everybody to at least explore that, or if you can qualify for an NSA with the post office and get that NSA and you qualify, you're going to have significant savings. But at the same time, you shouldn't have any depredation in what your or lesser service of what you get today with maybe your consolidators. Now, they have cubic price, they have cubic ground rates, goes up to 20 pounds, or their cubic pricing is very competitive, I think up to 20 pounds. But FedEx Economy or FedEx Economy services, UPS Saver, all these are all ground services today. Everybody's trying to find savings.
Yeah. The per ounce price. There's a lot of creators out there, small individual shops, I think like Etsy type shops where people are, putting their creativity to work, right? And, putting little things together. I know that my wife has ordered from several locations and they've taken advantage of that. Like we get, decorative hair bows for like my daughters for pictures and things like that. Very specifically designed, very like awesome stuff. But like, they show up in our mailbox in a couple of days, and I can see that they're taking advantage of it. So for folks that aren't aware of these types of services, like that, are in these types of markets, what's some of the things that they should be looking for, or how do they find that type of stuff?
Yeah, the ounce-based stuff out there today, it's bigger than what most people think. If you think of the consolidators, the majority of their shipments were
Mm-hmm.
ounce-based. So they've lost that, right? They've lost that discount. Although they can still offer some discounts to it, I think everybody's really focusing on shipping packages 1 pound and above.
Sure.
But from an ounce-based perspective, you think of fashion apparel and poly bags, all of those things fit in a mailbox, right? And
Yeah.
the USPS owns that mailbox. So nothing's better than having something that fits in the mailbox. The post office owns the mailbox. They don't leave that small, lightweight package laying on this doorstep or your apartment building. I mean, the post office has a huge advantage by owning that mailbox.
You mentioned NSAs if they qualify for it. Are there specific qualifications that people should have in mind if they're going to start to look for the post office for NSAs? Do you have like any information around that?
I don't represent the post office.
Sure.
I'm not,
Just general
strictly promoting
guidelines
that.
or recommendations, if you
But
will.
yeah, I mean, if you're a large shipper, today, and you're doing 1,000 pieces a day, you should certainly be talking to the post office about an NSA. If you are a small shipper, you may be able to take advantage of by working with a select third party, or even some 3PLs may have the ability to get an NSA. Those are things that obviously you should talk to. I mean, small shippers may not have that scale,
Okay.
and I think they become quite vulnerable. I think if you think about discounts, you don't have that volume to get that high discount. I mean, there's a good comparison by taking the post office, talking to the reps. They're expanding their sales organization, but there's also alternative carriers in the marketplace too. And I think alternative carriers, cover certain percentages of the area. Finding the right fit and the right price point. I mean, at the end of the day, customers have to buy from you, whether if you're selling on a marketplace or you're selling on your own site. Shipping is a component of a cost. It's a cost driver, and you got to figure out what cost is it that it's going to be acceptable to your customers to receiving their goods, and
Hmm.
then, you know, which carrier is most likely to deliver on promise at the lowest cost. I mean, that's the perfect situation to be in. Grabbing data analytics today could never be more important.
Sure.
Having the capability of having your data, knowing what your shipping data, knowing what your growth is, where your packages are going, you'll have the ability then, to come to multiple different consultants out there if you want to use them. You can have firms like Sifted. Anybody to help analyze your data can help point you in the right direction to get you the right solution that fits your business needs.
Yeah. We certainly talked to countless folks that always tell us they're like, I have no idea what we're doing. We're trying to figure this out. And they really just, you've got to start with basic visibility. And for, something that is such a large line item, it's still surprising to me that nobody has like consistent visibility into how they're managing that cost, like how is that impacting your business, all of those types of things. So I still run into it every day. I try to guide people as best as possible. Like, let's just start with the basics. Let's just get our heads wrapped around like how much we're doing, where is it going, what does it look like, all of these basic things. Just like you wouldn't just take your finances and just start spending money willy-nilly without like ever looking at how much money you have, or what your debt ratio might be or anything like that. You would keep an eye on your bank account, right? Like you wouldn't just spend. Let's keep an eye on your shipping accounts as well. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned something about other carriers out there, and I know that we've seen some changes. Like now we've seen UPS take their SurePost service back internally, and that was all designed around increasing delivery density. With your experience, with DHL and everything, do you see anything coming to start to change with the DHL relationship in the post office?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of DHL, but I mean, think about the world's largest post and the second largest post in the world. You have two organizations there. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, DHL tried to make a run at the domestic market before.
Sure.
It was very challenging pre e-commerce explosion
Hmm.
to fill up trucks and have nationwide zip codes and have the same delivery footprint as FedEx and UPS. Is there an opportunity? I mean, you think about big organizations and cash flow. Yeah, I think DHL is certainly in a position where if they found it feasible, maybe they acquire a network that's getting close to full. Who knows? I mean, we're all speculating. This is all in speculation,
Yeah.
but I mean, they decided to stay with the post office domestically. They're going to continue to do the work share. Um, I'm not sure if they can speed their products up any faster. I mean, they can certainly, having a reduction in the amount of DDUs has to be a cost savings.
Sure.
So the consolidators who are taking it to the DDU don't have to have all those additional trucks, and they can figure out those critical entry times of getting it into these SCFs to try to improve services or try to equate to it. I've seen a little bit of a erosion on transit. Nothing terrible, but there has been some decline in some products that have gone down a little bit slower for some of the customers that I work with. But yeah, I mean, it's still an alternative. It's still what I would say accessorial light.
Yeah.
So you think about that. But at the end of the day, large organizations. I mean, what Walmart's doing from a local footprint. What companies like Amazon, obviously from a density. Think about the footprint and delivery points now that Amazon has, and the unique postal relationship that they still maintain to deliver their packages. So a lot of advantages maybe on the Amazon side. UPS, FedEx, they're right sizing, right? We don't need duplication. We don't need the ground economy network, and we don't need a smart post network. Getting those facilities all under the same roof. So we're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing some closures and shutdowns of operations because they were redundant. So you're going to continuously see the carriers in a shipper's market, which it is today, still trying to reduce costs, improve services, and get a little bit of advantage or differentiator in the market somehow.
I love it when we get out the crystal ball. It's always fun to kind of speculate, especially when there's been so much that's happened. When you can kind of look down and you're like, well, maybe this will trend that way. That's why I was curious. I know that DHL and the post office have a really strong partnership out there. They depend on each other quite regularly. It could be interesting to see what happens in 2025. I don't know that I should be gambling on what's going to happen in 2025 because anything's possible.
Yeah.
But it should be interesting.
Well, there's one thing that's been mentioned, and obviously we're in whatever pops up in the political news every day, but with the postmaster's departure, let's not discount the ability to have maybe the post office gets privatized. I mean that's been discussed. I mean it's just thrown
Sure.
on the table, and maybe that's what the postmaster saw. Now, most postmasters are assigned for 10 years. Very few go. I think Potter was probably the last one who probably did close to 10 years, but the rest of them have done 5 and kind of done their time or 5 or less, or sometimes just a handful have gone over that. Maybe there was something in the forecast that kind of, maybe it's the release of Doge on the post office to find out, hey, what do we need to do to scrub 640,000 employees down, get rid of some redundancies here, and maybe having someone else process, sort, and distribute your items might be better than building it out yourself. So maybe there's some of that privatization discussions that we might see in that crystal ball. Who knows? It's all speculation, but none of that's off the table.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's just to hang around and keep waiting, right? We're getting inundated with news left and right about all kinds of things. It's hard to keep up with stuff. Strategy wise, for 2025, what kind of advice would you give to folks that are really looking to harness a plan or something, or maybe they had a plan coming out of 2024, and 2025 they're like, things are starting to change again and I'm not sure my plan's right. Like what should they be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you could go all the way from where you're sourcing and buying items. I mean, that's kind of key strategy. Where do you source? Where do you manufacture? What do you sell? Look at that strategy today. Understand what those potential tax implications might be. Weigh that into your business plan. But I think more importantly, if you're a small shipper, small, medium size, you start looking at 3PLs, right? I think 3PLs, the expansion of 3PLs, you're going to see the big Chinese marketplaces. You're going to see all of your competition who you're selling against on marketplaces all start domiciling their goods here in the U.S. They're going to bring it in, formal entry, get your 20 in a case here, put them on these shelves and start selling these items into multiple nodes across the U.S. So fulfillment, huge opportunity. But with fulfillment, there's costs. Know your costs. Know what a fast-moving SKUs are. Know when to, where to put slow moving SKUs. If you're fulfilling that yourself today, put that slow moving stuff back, or maybe put it into coming direct from the factory for back orders and slow moving items. Those are great strategies. It is. I was at Manifest. I thought the message was loud and clear about the year of 3PLs and managing data. I mean, it couldn't be more. Data and analytics and predictability in shipping and supply chain couldn't be more important than it is now.
That was an amazing show. I mean, there was a ton of stuff there, and I mean, immediately when you walk in, you're inundated by just technology everywhere. You've got drones flying around and mock-ups of warehouses. You've got self-driving 18-wheelers. You've got a robot that's like, "Hey, I'm going to take your picture." Like everything was very technology driven, and the way of the future. And I know you and I talked about this a little bit earlier today. The this could be a market where we see a lot of boom in that fulfillment 3PL space. So yeah, looking at those strategies, like understand like what those partners can deliver for you, what they can do for you, where they're positioned, and that goes back to knowing your business. Where are your clients? What are they ordering? And where do you need to have that stuff to give you the most options, to the most resiliency out there?
Yeah, and we might get some favorable things to help promote selling outside the U.S. Your board, beyond borders. We get some type of trade reciprocity. People from Europe and other parts of the world start buying more goods from the U.S. So I mean, these are potential good things.
Sure.
Instead of always doom and gloom. Oh my God, tariffs coming this way. If we balance some of this stuff out, it actually might be positive. And then to the technology side, man, I'm wowed all the time by the technology. What are they must have MIT graduates running around in our supply chain these days because like I say, I started 43 years ago in this industry, and I've never seen such a brighter, smarter group of people than what I'm seeing in the technology today about predictability and utilizing AI, machine learning. Companies like Nimble and FedEx doing great things that are really automating things. I mean, it's just really amazing to see some of the really cool stuff out there done with some of the robotics and analytics.
There's always a better way, and technology, yeah, to your point, never ceases to amaze me either. I've got little kids, and it's crazy to see them, how they interact and work, and just seemingly natively know how to use these devices that were completely non-existent when we were younger. Um, I'm like, hey, can you? I've got an error on my screen. Can you fix that? Like to my 5-year-old, right? Like help me out here.
Yeah, every 5-year-old can help you load up your Apple Pay real quick, can't they? They already know how to do that.
Yeah, and they can spend the money very easily as well. That's no problem. Well, what are we missing here? What other things might folks find valuable?
Yeah, I mean, um, look, these changes are going to continue to come in the marketplace. You have to have flexibility today. Everything that you need to do. I mean, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps about planning contingencies, planning for the what ifs. The
Yeah,
what if, what's going to happen? What if that occurs there? What moves there? How do you move it from there? I think everybody's supply chain has to have that flexibility today. You have to have the what if scenarios. Don't get caught short-handed. If you have supply issues on the front end, if you're a small business and your container falls off that ship and you can't get it replenished for another 90 days, what are your backups? How do you
yeah.
how do you react to that? I mean, people have to plan their supply chain. Um, it's competitive, right? I mean, the market's getting saturated. You got to find new customers. You got to acquire new customers. You got to retain new customers.
Yep.
You know, um, Lifetime value has never been more important, and we have the data now to tell you that. So, um, you know, get with a partner, get with a consultant, get with an analytics group, have someone digest that for you, kind of help you, guide you along that way. At Plaidmark, all we do is we just connect partners. We are just purely saying you want to operate in this part of the world and you need a partner or you need someone to work with on the logistics side, whether it be IT or upfront building a shipping platform or a platform provider. we make those connections for you. That's all we do, is we're just connectors. We're agnostic logistics connectors in the marketplace. We have no loyalty to anybody. We just try to right size, right fit you into growing your business. And a lot of times, it's just opening new doors and new partnerships.
I love that. I need to have you come talk to my team. I've been trying to drill into them the importance of contingency plans and everything, and how necessary it is for shippers. And we built the structure of our entire technology around the ability to build different models and simulate different scenarios so that you can build those contingency plans. And the example that I gave them, or the analogy that I gave them, I was like, it's like an NFL coach sitting on they're on the sidelines. They've got that card, the play sheet. They've got a play for every situation that they can think of. If it's 4th and 3 and they need to go for it, they're going to roll out, and they've got 3 receivers out there, so they've got multiple options, or they can run. That is what we need to do. And we're seeing the importance of why you need to have, those contingency plans right now, because things can change, in an instant. And rather than trying to scramble around and completely scrap your business plan, you can just go to the next play on there and just focus on executing. You're going to be way ahead of the curve, way ahead of your competition. So I love that you brought that point up. Well, we're getting close to time here. Maybe we hit on some closing remarks, Mark. What's a good way for folks to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I post quite commonly on LinkedIn. You'll see me out there. It's the easiest way to reach out to me. Let me know if you like my content. If you want to set an appointment up, you can do it through LinkedIn. It's the easiest way. I'm at a lot of the shows. I have a team of group of 4 or 5 other consultants I work with. So we have a kind of a pool. Somebody specialized in operations, somebody on the manufacturing side, somebody on the transportation, air carrier, ground transportation, LTL. We have all those type of partners that we work with in a pool of consultants. Let us know what your needs are. Let us know what your concerns are. We're always happy to look at opportunities, share what we can do for you. We like to say, hey, we like to point you in the right direction and kind of give you some guidance out the door. If you need a full analytics, take your data, kind of scrub it. We'll try to right size you with partners like Sifted and others out in the marketplace that have that. So, again, we're kind of agnostic. So let us know how we can help.
Love it. Well, Mark, we'll make sure to put a link to you all in the show notes out there. Thanks again for joining us. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of weeks more personally than just a business connection via LinkedIn. You're a wealth of knowledge. You've got more knowledge than I could ever hope to gain in this space, and so that's why I love talking to folks like yourself. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you got some value out of this. And if you have some questions, make sure to reach out to Mark. You can reach out to us as well. If you're looking to navigate through, whatever 2025 ends up bringing you, or optimize your parcel operations, your spend management, any of that stuff, don't hesitate to shoot us an email. You can reach me, jeremy.lee@sifted.com. I'll also have my LinkedIn out there in the show notes. So like I said, Sifted has tools. We model changes. We can put things together to help you manage your parcel operations. We can help you see around the corner so that you can have that full playbook. You can focus on executing. And ultimately, we want to help make sure that you're successful. You have a great year so that everybody's high-fiving at the end of the year and celebrating all the wins that they had. So check us out at sifted.com to learn more about all of us. And then thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.